Hi, my name is Dan. This video is one in a series of videos that are about using collisions and handling collisions in Unreal. And in this one, I'm going to talk about collision meshes. You may have heard the words, you might know exactly what I'm talking about, you might not. So let's crack into it. So I've just got a third-person template map here, and I'm going to go into the starter content and the props. There's a few objects in here, so my favourite object is the couch. So I'm just going to drop a couch there. And I'm going to also get this one here, which is often used in Unreal, in Epic's example projects as an object that they display materials on. So I'm going to click play and show you something, which is, so that prop there, I can't walk my character into. This prop here, I can. And so the question is, why is that? Why am I not able to walk into that one, but I am able to walk into that one? And the answer is pretty simple, which is that this one here, the ball thing, has got a collision mesh, whereas the bench doesn't have a collision mesh. And the collision mesh is part of the information in the static mesh. So mesh is a word that's used for how the shape is described, and the static mesh, most of the information that you got in there is describing the shape of the thing that you see. But a collision mesh describes the shape of what you can and can't walk into in this. Right, so let's open up the ball thing and have a look at the collision mesh on that. So we've got, this is the static mesh editor. There are various tools in here, but this is where you can handle stuff like collision. And there's a button here which you can show, we can draw a collision, and it says, well, show it. And it says show collision, either simple collision or complex collision. Now, this is where it gets a little bit more complicated, because actually there are two types of collision. There's the simple collision, yeah, as you can see, simple collision and complex collision. So the complex collision, let's show that first and display it. That actually displays the actual mesh that is being drawn, and it's got a lot of triangles and it's in a lot of detail here. If you zoom in, you can see that this letter is kind of embossed and all sorts of stuff. Now, if we stop looking at that and we look at the simple collision instead, you can see that those green lines describe a shape which is much less complicated. And the reason for that is because the more complicated your shape is, the more expensive the calculations are for your collision detection. And simple collision is much, much faster than the complex collision. It can do the complex collision, but it's very computationally expensive to do something as complex as this light green grid that you can see on here. And in fact, there's some restrictions on using the complex collision, as we'll see in a minute. Drawing, why don't we use the simple for drawing? Obviously, we want to have a well-described shape when we actually see it, and actually the drawing is much, much faster than the collision detection. And that's as a result of hardware acceleration. Okay, so let's go out of that one. Let's go into our bench. So let's open that up. And if we do collision and show simple collision, there's nothing. We show complex collision, that's got the mesh that is the bench. Okay, so why don't we try using the complex collision? Right, well, let's do that. We can do that over here in the settings, and I'm just looking for the right setting here. General settings, collisions, here we go. And collision complexity. So we can either choose, use project default, have it split by simple and complex. We can use simple collision as complex, or complex. I have no idea why you would want to use that. Complex collision as simple. Okay, so that's what we're going to do, because we've got a complex collision. So we're going to set it to use complex collision as simple. We've got a complex collision because that is the shape that's been drawn. Okay. I'm going to save that and press play. And now we can't walk into it. So, job done. Maybe. There are a couple of problems with this. Okay, we can walk on the bench, which is nice. So I'm going to The first one is that I can't demonstrate, which is that, as I said, it's expensive in terms of calculations. The second is, if we want to simulate physics, we're going to have an issue. And the reason why I've just lifted that up is I'm going to go to simulate physics and click that on. And when we press play, that should fall to the ground. And it's not. And the collision's working, but it's not actually working. So when we press F12 to stop, we actually get a warning here. And the warning is trying to simulate physics on that asset, but it has complex or simple collision, which means effectively it's going to refuse to do physics on it because it thinks that the collision is going to be too complicated. So let's go back into that asset and remove that and start creating some collision information. Excuse me. So we'll set that to project default. And we're going to stop it showing, where's the showing here, collision. I'm going to stop it showing the complex collision, but let it continue to show simple collision. And there's lots of different ways that we can create collision for this. And if you go to the collision menu, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 options. Actually, that 9th option takes boxes that already exist and turn them into convex collision. Let's have a quick look at these. So let's try add a sphere. And we can see the green lines there. That's not a great collision volume for that. What it's done is a sphere with radius being the largest dimension out from the center. So we can remove that. And it's really easy to play around with this because you can just do remove collision and it takes off any collision that you've got in there. Add capsule. Okay, that's not bad. It's better. It's worked out that it needs the capsule kind of lying on its side. Let's remove that. Let's try box collision. Add box simplified collision. Again, not too bad. It's a bit kind of high on this edge. It would be nice if we could still stand on the bench, wouldn't we? So let's remove that. Let's try these in order. So that gives us a kind of chamfered box. I don't know if you can see those green lines there. Remove collision. And these 3 options are similar. 10 DOP, X 10 DOP, Y 10 DOP, or Z. It's just it's different axis in which the way it's working out. So the Y one gives us kind of angled line here. Remove. And the Z one is a bit similar to the Y one. What did I put on there? I thought that the Z one was similar. Maybe it isn't. No, it's got this corner here. There we go. Remove collision. And there's a couple that give you a more complex shape. So there's an 18 DOP and a 25 DOP. So the 18 will give us this kind of angled bit. Collision remove. And add 26. Sorry, not 25. And I can't see whether there's more in there, but it's similar. Remove that. The bottom one, auto convex collision, which will do some calculations and will work out a more complex shape. Convex means that it'll never have dips in it. And when you click on that, it flashes this bit down here because these are the settings that it brings up. You've got a hull count and a max hull verts. So that's the number of pieces that's going to be made. And that's how many vertices per piece it's going to use. And it's going to try and work out some best fit. And it's got some precision numbers here as well. So we're going to apply that and see what we get. So it has to do a bit of calculation. That doesn't look bad at all. It's fairly complicated though. So let's go and see that one in action, and then we'll come back and we'll create our own using a couple of boxes. So we're now, simulate physics is now working. It kind of is very rocky on its bottom. That's because it's, well, the weight is kind of evenly distributed. We can click on it. We can rotate it. That's nice. Okay. We can make it simpler than that and actually perform slightly better than that as it happens. So let's go back in. What I'm going to do is remove that and just show you how to do it with a couple of boxes. So remove collision. And what we're going to do is we're going to have one box which is going to be up to the height of the seat and is going to stretch across the whole width and the breadth, so you can stand on the seat. I'm going to make it as close as I can to the actual height of the seat, but also so that it goes to the bottom. Because it's a box, it'll stretch further out forwards, and I don't mind that, because if you're walking into it, actually your collision, you wouldn't want to be walking underneath this bit here. You'd want to be kind of bumping into it here, and that makes it more stable on its feet, because it's got a wider base there. And then the second box I'm going to do is going to be the back, and I'm going to do an upright box to give that. So I'm going to go into the collision and say add box simplified collision, and then hopefully we can select that and we can manipulate it. So I've got the scale grid snap to grid off, and I've got the moving, the dragging grid snap to snap off. So I'm going to do some scaling just to bring this down. The width is fine, the depth is fine, and we just want this. And this is a nice little trick that I've learned, which is I'm watching the bottom green line there to see when it disappears, because that's when it's gone through that. Oh no, let's just hit that plane. That's good. Now, where's its height? It's not too bad. It's just a little bit high. So I'm just going to go back to scale and just tweak it just a tiny bit. That might be too much. It's very sensitive. Let's try that. Oh, that's a little bit. I've got to tweak down again. Just the way it disappears. And then I'm going to come to the side and have a look. That's really nice, because it's going to look as if you're kind of standing slightly inside the seat, but the seat cushion is kind of depressing slightly, maybe. Maybe your foot will look like it's inside it. We'll check that one. Try it out. And I'm going to put a second one on, which is going to be the collision mesh for the back box. And again, just scale. So we just want to thin this down quite a lot. Maybe that's a bit too thin. Let's try it. Let's move it and see. Just move that to there. So I'm not bothered about it being perfectly accurate. What I really want is for it to feel reasonable. So when we walk into the back, it looks fine. I'm going to reduce the camera speed, because that's just annoying me. That's much better. So that's not quite at the back. It's a kind of average at the back, so it's not too bad. And if I want to, I can combine these two boxes together by using this object, this choice here, convert boxes to convex. Let's just see what happens when I do that. Are you sure? And yes, and it's still got the same shape, but it's turned it into one mesh instead of having two meshes. I don't know if that saves any calculation or not. So I'm just going to save that and try it out. So let's go into our world and press play, and it falls down. It does still fall over, of course. Let's play again, because I'm going to tip that over. But I want to be able to walk on here. And, oh, that's good. I can kind of roll it if I push that way, which is, yeah, it's reasonably kind of do this rolling thing, and you can roll it back there. But it's fairly stable on its feet as well. So that's a quick look at collision meshes, what they are and how they're used, and we've done an example of creating one ourselves. That's it from me for now.